Hey guys, my name is Laura. I'm going to go through this Leaving Cert history essay with you from the 2019 paper. The topic it's from is the Dictatorship and Democracy topic, and it's the question about Britain's socio-economic problems. Now, I do recommend you have a good read through the entire essay yourself before we get into it, because I'm only going to dip in and dip out of different parts of the essay to point out some very important bits to you. But in saying that, you will find a fully annotated PDF of the essay on Studyclix if you'd like a little bit more detail on it afterwards. Firstly, to look at the question specifically. What stands out to me there straight away? I'm in my Leaving Cert history exam, I'm pressed for time. What do I look out for to make sure that I know the path I'm going down if I choose this essay? So what I always look out for first of all are and, because that tells me straight away how many parts there are to the question, because I have to do every side of the and, if you know what I mean. So there's two ands here, so that means that there's three parts to this question. I have to talk about 1, the social problems, 2, the economic problems, and 3, how effectively were they tackled. I obviously don't have to deal with all 3 parts, evenly, but I do have to make sure, and the marking scheme would point that out to you as well, you have to mention all 3 of those things. The next thing that stands out to me with this question are the dates. When you're given a span of dates like that, you have to make sure that you talk about the entirety of that span. So you have to start off at 1920 and go all the way up to 1939 at least. Now, I've said there that you have to watch the dates, but make sure you give some context. So what was going on in Britain, and maybe even the world, before 1922? Because that's obviously important as to why there were social and economic problems. So I have to talk about before 1920 and I have to go all the way up to 1939. The other word that I would zoom in on there is the word effectively. So we have to make sure in our history essays that we are referring back to the question that's being asked on the day. I'm not just giving all the information that I know about this particular topic. I'm giving that information, but I'm knitting it together under the question that I'm being asked on the day. So if I keep going back to the word effectively, using that word or using synonyms for the word effectively, that how these problems were tackled with was, it was very effective, or it transformed this, or it disimproved something else, or it highlighted this, or it illustrated something else. Language like that helps you highlight to the examiner that you are aware of what you're being asked to do on the day. And if I have all those things, guys, banked, then I'm on the right track and this is a good question for me. So now to the actual essay itself. Now you write your essay in paragraphs, as you know. Now the marking scheme for the examiners is broken down like this. The examiners are told to mark every paragraph out of 12, as you know. And often people kind of get stuck in that good or very good category. So what can I do to move myself up out of that category? Well, I need to ask myself, is my paragraph outstanding? Is my paragraph substantial? Those are the 2 words I'd love you to have in your mind as you're reading this sample answer, other sample answers, writing your own essays. Is it substantial? Do I have enough facts and stats and quotes and figures in this paragraph to prove my point? Is it outstanding? Have I made myself very clear? Am I on point? If I have those 2 things, those 2 words in my head, that could help me move my standard up the ladder a good bit. Now, as I start to write the essay, I'm going to start off with an introduction. And this is a good introduction. It does set the scene well and it gives a good amount of detail on the background. World War II has ended. It brought a lot of problems with it to Britain, and that's laid out quite well here. I like that the intro does have a nice amount of facts and statistics. It sets the scene for me. Its national debt was also 10 times higher. Wow, things were really bad. That's very, very clear to me. I would love if this introduction explained that word a bit more, that Britain was a depressed country. This is where and why the social and economic problems started, because of the high unemployment, the low standard of living, the poor education. That could just be broadened out for me a little bit more in this particular introduction. The final thing I want to say about this intro is that I love to see introductions that refer to the question explicitly, clearly, because all of those things create a lot of social and economic problems, and these problems were tackled in various ways, some effectively and some not. Do you know what I mean? Something like that. You can find your own way to say it, your own language, but use the words of the question in the introduction. Make it clear to the examiner what it is you've decided about this question and what it is you're now going to go and prove or attempt to prove. Moving on now to the main body of the essay and looking at a few specific paragraphs. Paragraph 3 I've zoomed in on here for a number of reasons. This paragraph does have a lot of good, accurate and relevant facts and statistics. But for me, this paragraph is a prime example of someone who has learned off a lot of good, they've done a lot of work, they've worked hard and they've learned a good bit of information under this topic. But they've kind of squashed all of the information that they know into this paragraph, and they're not really clear on what exactly they're using this information to prove. I think this particular paragraph touches on about 4 main points. So this paragraph to me should be fleshed out into a paragraph on post-World War I Britain, highlighting all of the facts and figures of the unemployment rate and the standard of living and the shipbuilding and all of those things that had caused a serious downturn in Britain. Then you could move on then, as is mentioned there, the Trade Union Congress calling the general strike in 1926. So that was one of the things that these social and economic problems led to, and one of the ways that the problems were tackled by the people was to go on strike. That in itself is a paragraph. This paragraph here then does mention the Wall Street crash, which is the next item on the agenda. The Wall Street crash hit in 1929. How does that affect Britain? How does that increase the social and economic problems, and how were they then tackled with? Can you see where I'm going? You're constantly referring back to the question. Around this time then you also have the hunger marches, which would lead in then to the Jarrow March, which is a huge part of this essay, and I'll talk about it shortly. But that is how I would look at that piece of work there, that paragraph 3. It's the foundation of 4 paragraphs really. So be very careful, learn off your information, make sure you're using it in the right order, and make sure you are using it in a focused way to the question that's being asked on the day. I mentioned the Jarrow March there. Paragraphs 5 and 6 are 2 of the paragraphs that deal with the Jarrow March, which is the case study that is linked to this particular essay. What's good about these paragraphs? It does use good simple language. You don't have to be too flowery. Once you're clear, no problem at all. This essay uses lots of short paragraphs, which can be recommended a lot of the time, so that's excellent. But even in saying that, this paragraph here needs a lot more detail. The Jarrow March is such a huge event in dealing with the social and economic problems. We need a lot more detail about how it came about and why it came about. The Jarrow Borough Council were behind organising it, the money that they raised, the people that were involved, etc., etc. I'd love if this essay used a few more linking phrases. Remember, your Leaving Cert history essays are not just different chunks of information. They are chunks of information that are linked, that there is a thread going through these paragraphs. So use some linking phrases to knit your argument together a little bit more. This is an essay that the information in it is correct and it is relevant, but they're not linking it back to the question enough. A lot more reference to the question is needed. Why are you telling me all of these things about the BBC and the Lord Mayor and Ellen Wilkinson and that they walked an average of 15 miles a day? What did all of those things highlight or illustrate? Did they deal with the problem? Did they make people more aware of the problems? Do you know what I mean? Much more reference to the question needed. The final thing I'm going to talk about in this essay is the conclusion. We've got to finish really, really strong with our conclusions. And again, those summing up skills are going to come into play here as well. Remember, I mentioned them when talking about the introduction. Now, this conclusion is a good simple summation of the Jarrow March. But the Jarrow March is not what this essay is solely about. So we have to be very careful there. A really common mistake with people is that when there's a case study directly linked to a question, they simply give me everything that happened within that case study. You weren't just asked about the Jarrow March here. So what this essay needs is a more general overall conclusion about the economic problems faced in Britain between 1920 and 1939 and how they were tackled. And don't be afraid to make a judgment on the effectiveness of those actions taken. Overall, the actions taken were not all that effective in improving the social and economic problems. This worked, but this didn't work, but this got worse and this got better. Don't be afraid to do that, because you will have the evidence there to back up your opinion, to back up your judgment. And then all of this could be placed in a wider context. As a result of the Jarrow March and the hunger marches, the Beveridge report came out highlighting the poverty and the low standard of living. That Beveridge report, of course, became part of the foundation for the welfare state, which transformed Britain and the UK and Northern Ireland. It had huge impact. So that could be included in a general conclusion here. So what's needed here is you would keep that paragraph that's there in front of you, but then another overall conclusion is needed after that paragraph. And that would help move this essay up in standard very, very quickly. That brings me now, guys, to the end of my teardown of this particular essay. I hope you found that helpful. Remember, the full essay is analysed on Studyclix if you'd like a bit more detail on all of the paragraphs. And I hope to talk to you again. Take care. Bye bye.